Hello everyone. First of all, I have to apologise for not being here in person, but unfortunately events prevented me from doing so. So I hope this presentation, I hope you'll find it very informative and useful. I'm going to be talking about the impact of new technologies on language education policies in Queensland, where I live, in the state of Queensland in Australia. Just a quick overview. I will be looking at the policy that we have at the moment, a new policy, a shift to start teaching languages from preschool onwards and using technology, and how this has sort of connected to existing initiatives that I'm involved with. So I'll be talking about a particular project's development that we've sort of been doing over the past 2 or 3 years, and what has been achieved so far and how. And out of this emerges a model of language exchange with Chinese and English. And so what are the implications, and how does this fit in with the theme of technologies? So currently, the language education policy and practice to date, many languages are taught from primary school through to university, something like 146 across the whole of Australia, because we are a very diverse population. English as a second language also is provided from primary school through to vocational education and university as well, because we have non-English speakers in our society who need to learn English, and we have international students as well throughout the whole system, schools right through to university. So all sectors need to cater for the English needs of international students. And we have many speakers of different languages, and they're also needed in our tourism. At the Gold Coast in Queensland, which is the biggest tourist area in Australia, at Movie World, for instance, they have about 66 different languages that they can draw upon for their tourism. And so we have a very culturally and linguistically diverse community, which includes indigenous languages as well. So there is a huge need for languages education, because we have international students and immigrants, refugee people as well, which all have English language needs. And then multicultural Australia, people want to actually maintain the language, their first language, from their home countries as well, which is a big challenge. And then we have indigenous language needs, trying to save those languages from dying out because of the population reducing and people moving to the cities and so on. And then we have new terminology. We have cold learners or EALD learners, so cultural and linguistically diverse learners, or English as an added language, or dialect learners. So teachers and education have to come to grips with changes to the way that we refer to language learning. We also have a linguistically and culturally diverse workforce and communities in general. So education and tourism is very big, and great language needs there. International business as well. There's a huge need for languages in business. And you might think to yourself, what else? I'm sure there are other things that we could be adding to this list. And of course Australia is very, very conscious of its situation in the world, and of course now we're living in what is being referred to as the Asian century. So we have a government white paper on that, and it actually aims to have everyone become more Asia literate, with an increased capability to build stronger connections and partnerships across the whole of the region. So Asia literacy is a big component of what schools are having to do now. It should be a core part of students' learning. Currently, Asian languages are taught, but generally speaking with limited success, although of course we do have some very successful people who go on to university. But generally speaking, we haven't really been that good at developing children's languages. So challenges for languages education policy and delivery, there are lots. First of all, continuity of learning. Because Australia is such a huge country with cities sort of all around the edges and vast distances to travel, it's a huge challenge to provide teachers to the schools in the more remote areas. And motivation and opportunities to communicate are limited. Even though we think about involving the community where people do have the language that's being taught at the school, is ideal to bring people in to at least have someone to speak to in the language that the students are learning. And then curriculum and the amount of time that's spent on learning a language is quite small when we sort of compare that with the amount of time that's given in centres that specialise in teaching English very intensively, whereas 2 half-an-hours per week in a primary school isn't very much at all when you consider teacher turnover changes over for that half-an-hour lesson. The lesson becomes about 20 minutes in the end. And provision of teachers in rural and remote areas is a challenge because it can be very, very costly, and you really need to have language teachers who can teach other subjects as well in order to accommodate it economically. So human and financial resources are a big issue, and then there are some established values and attitudes within education where some people think languages are not needed and languages are a waste of time. So there are some negative issues there that have to be overcome. So language education policy considerations, certainly we always acknowledge that there is a need for languages education, but we also acknowledge the challenges for languages education and delivery. But now the whole federal government nationally has put out an edict about starting language learning at a very early age in preschool, using applications, software on iPads. And this has been taken up by my state, Queensland. So we have a lovely new policy now. It really is the ideal. So a new policy tells us now that we should be having global schools creating successful global citizens. Now this is a consultation document. If you were to Google global schools, you would find this document, and it is worth reading in the whole conceptualization. And it isn't a very long document either, so it's very good to read. And it recognises the opportunities provided by digital communication technologies and also the need for bilingual and culturally literate employees in the workplace. And languages need to be globally competitive in the international employment market. If we don't have languages, they're saying we are going to be behind in the future. Now, that policy actually links to what's called the New Colombo Plan, which confirms the significance of languages for Australia's future and supports Australian undergraduates to study and undertake internships in the Indo-Pacific region. This has been going on for quite a long time in different sort of universities and high schools, but it's actually now being made very explicit in order to try to boost language learning. It also links to the first declaration of the National Goals for School Education, which included a commitment to the principle of access to languages education for all students in Australian schools. So making it happen, lots and lots of different ways through digital communication technologies, Skype and Twitter, through video, all of these things facilitate a verbal interaction and also developing literacy. And just thinking about smartphones have really made a huge impact on provision of opportunities now for language learning. So why are they so smart? How do smartphones make a pedagogical difference? I think this is really a watershed moment, and I've been writing something about gamma pedagogy this year, which is all about how students can become independent learners and be self-generative in their learning, which I think technology facilitates that. And Daniel Pink's 6 Essential Aptitudes, involving students being creative in what they're doing, is also something worthwhile to consider. And ensuring that learning flows. This all adds to deepening and personalising language learning for students. So in all of this, I think there are very big implications for language teachers. So a very big advantage of modern technology is that all our students seem to be having access to smartphones. So they're very familiar to the student already. They're very easy to use. They have them all of the time, and it becomes a natural environment for speaking and listening. We just have to build in the purpose. And of course they're equipped with a microphone, speakers, and special speech processing hardware and software, and connected to the network. And they're fully capable computing devices as well. So they're appearing everywhere. And so Zilber says the challenge is to find the apps that are engaging, effective, and complementary to the classroom learning. So can we find them? Well, the best smartphone apps for ESL students are said to be designed in small segments. This is by Zilber. And to be engaging and entertaining, and also addictive. And that's sort of self-reinforcing, and that's where my concept of self-generative learning is at the core of this. They're usually created by native English speakers, but it doesn't stop non-native English speakers from creating them. They're highly focused and complementary to other learning, and they're specifically designed for smartphones. So some of these popular apps are Memrise, Duolingo, Anki, Live Mocha, and Pimsleur Method, and LinkU. And of course Skype and Twitter and Facebook also keep people involved in communicating and having a real purpose to do it. So this is just some pictures off the internet that will just convey how prolific all of this material is, with special offers. Join the app club and so on. Learn Thai, Cantonese or Portuguese and any language that you wish to learn, and it is interactive. So this is what Duolingo looks like, and you can click start the tour and the little bird will be taking you through. Choose a pathway. Are you a beginner? Do you just want to do basics, or do you want to do the placement test? So it's all quite attractive, and again in short little pieces, so there's no time to get lost or find out that you're stuck, because it's segmented into small little bites that are manageable. And then another thing that's now coming into being is augmented reality. And this is described in Wikipedia as a live, direct or indirect view of a physical, real-world environment whose elements are augmented or supplemented by computer-generated sensory input such as sound, video and graphics. But in short, the way that we're using this at the moment is using an app. Children can actually video something that they're doing. It might be a process, it might be just having a fun time and communicating about something. And then you can actually put that student's photograph up on the wall, and the thing that has been videoed can, if you point your phone at that, will actually play back the video that you've just made. So what it means is it's a fantastic opportunity to reinforce that learning, because it can be watched over and over again and it can be shared by others as well. So this software is called Erasma, and you can download it for free on your mobile phone or iPad. And then you can frame the tagged image or object in the app's viewfinder and unlock the video of what you have been doing. So it's got absolutely wonderful, a wonderful array of ways of using it and building language around it for real purposes. So students are really creating their own authentic resources, which are resilient and can be used over and over again and shared. So becoming clear then about the benefits of more than one language, we shouldn't forget that there is a huge reason, also an advantage in learning languages. So here is a quote from Professor Zhao, who says, given the interaction with other countries because of globalization, language is not a speciality. It's going to be as fundamental as basic reading. So we learn to read, we should be learning other languages. He is the president, chair and director of the Institute for Global and Online Education at the University of Oregon. And then Fernandez says, languages offer unique insights and opportunities for the development of cognitive skills which are unavailable to the monolingual learner. So another very important reason for having languages education and having that policy. And I've just put a little note there about our federal government, Global Schools Creating Successful Global Citizens consultation draft. Now onto the project that I've been involved in, and this has been a very long-term project that's come to fruition with students from Taiwan visiting schools in Australia, where high school students are helping our primary school students who are learning Chinese. And this is a visit on the ground for 2 weeks during the year, but in the meantime the students are interacting online, and they're creating their own YouTube videos, and we're also doing this the other way around, so that our students will be going over there this year working with children who are learning English. And I have to acknowledge here my colleague Sylvia Mingli Lai, who's the director of the Youth Knowledge Network in Kaohsiung in Taiwan. So this is called the Asian Learning Circle, because she also works with Japanese and Taiwanese students and Korean and Taiwanese students, and has field work and cultural studies, international education, and we're creating sister cities and sister school relationships, and this is what's at the core of our new policy. So this project actually fits perfectly with the new policy. We're already doing it. So it's an asynchronous learning platform. Everything is recorded that occurs so that you can go back and listen to it and look at what documents you might have put up there, PowerPoints that you might have actually had to share with all the parties that are being involved, any images that people have shared. So there's a multiplicity of resources and with access by all. And both of those languages are being learned. And so working with partners as well to actually link to the curriculum. And the learning is project-based and thematic. So this is just some insights into the students who are sharing through home meeting, the platform you can see on the computer there. So it can link to the internet as well. So when I've been using it and I've been teaching English to students in Taiwan, I can quickly show them the city cat, which is the catamaran that people catch on the Brisbane River to go from one place to another. In a couple of seconds I can actually show the reality of what's happening around me through this home meeting. And you can actually write on the screen or type on the screen and highlight on the screen and speak and interact and see everybody's picture. So it's virtual, really face to face. So when we were getting started, we had Year 9 classes and 14 groups of 4 students, 2 Taiwanese and 2 Australians per group, and 1 group of 5 students. And the Australian students were involved in a speaking project using PowerPoint, video or Movie Maker to introduce the school in Chinese. So a film and a video theme and self-introduction to start off with through email and online interaction. So I can't link you to these YouTubes, but the students put what they create onto YouTube, and they created a series of videos about food and vocabulary and sentence development. So initially we had a pilot project going in 2011, and then in 2012 Taiwan students visited Australian schools, and the Taiwan primary school community had a conference day where I actually went and I spoke about how to prepare for the Australian students going over to Taiwan and about homestay and the value of doing this project. And in 2013 students visited the Australian schools and invited the principal of one particular school to visit Taiwan. And we tested out the video equipment, the platform and everything while I was in Taiwan talking to the school at one point. So in the end we had greatly increased activity and involving primary schools and high schools, and mutual visits are planned for 2015. So at a high school in Brisbane we actually had a memorandum of understanding signing. So we had 35 people came over from Kaohsiung to sign the memorandum of understanding. And so we had our mayor, we had our member of parliament for the area, and then we had the Minister for Communities. So we had a very big sort of affair with lots of protocols, and the students from Taiwan did dancing and singing, and the students in our school, actually in the hospitality area, put on a wonderful luncheon for all the people. So it was a very nice, lovely day to celebrate the project. And of course the project gets some funding from our government and local government as well, and it fits perfectly with our policy. So the project underpinnings, from Sylvia's point of view, it's exploratory and it has strong and broad links and development, and it has this element of exchange, a platform for student exchange, the curriculum, a genuine situation for communication, and technology orientated, so projects, information sharing, a deep learning context, and it's also recreation related. So when the students visit, part of it is about culture and tourism and opportunities to actually use the language for real life purposes. And then underpinning this is eternal friendship. So we have cyclic visits, and global understanding, we're hoping, comes out of all of this. And we have local presentations and global balance. Other considerations for the project are the education authorities have to support this, and we have to have some research and evaluation to be able to show that it is worth putting all of this effort and resources, which include quite a lot of financial resources. Is it worth it? We have to know. So getting started, there needs to be sponsorship, there needs to be funding for teacher visits, and funding for the resources. And out of this already has come, teachers are very interested not just in the language learning, but they're also discovering that teachers in Taiwan, for instance, are doing lots of interesting things in their teaching anyway. So they're keen to see what's happening in the schools, in maths teaching, for instance, and science teaching. So it's actually broadened the sharing base of appreciating what each group of teachers are doing, generally speaking. Some of the issues that have to be considered, of course, are security, and security of children online. We have big security here, so we have to have permissions for that to happen. Connectivity, we need to have a sufficient connectivity for this to work. And the homestay, of course, children have to be happy, students have to be happy wherever they're staying, and that sponsorship is absolutely vital. And there is a growing demand to expand. And of course, visits have to be planned very carefully, the timing of them, and then the service learning approach for students. They're volunteering to help their counterparts in the other country is also a very important base for this to happen. And then the sharing of practice and the broadening of the cultural awareness. And in the end, it's all about developing intercultural literacy so that we understand each other better. So the achievements so far, well-established and broad groups of supporters, and support from the respective education authorities and school communities, and our new policy highlights this concept. And we're having now a model of practice has been established, so I do want to do research on this. So some implications. It's really testing out our languages education policy and its assumptions and attitudes. And then we do need teacher in-service for teachers to broaden their view and across all our schools about having global citizens and developing the global schools. And pre-service teacher education needs to broaden now as well to provide that foundation for the languages learning to happen. Language teachers and language learners have to have opportunity to learn and to practice and maintain language. The pedagogical approach and student motivation and engagement is another huge implication. This model actually does facilitate that. Use of the internet and the digital communication technologies in language learning we're creating virtual learning communities. So we have got wonderful new opportunities. And then, of course, it's the time allocated to learning the language has been expanded through the technology. It's not just the real time in the classroom, it's the opportunities that students have externally to the time in the classroom. So really this can be very transformative and self-generative learning, and much social interactivity is involved. So it's absolutely the opposite of having a textbook alone. Language interactions for learning and access, and linking to students' levels of proficiency, of course, is the key. And learners practice and construct their own knowledge in doing this, and they interact with the apps and navigate and negotiate their own learning if they've got their app on their phone all the time, just like using Facebook. Communication and productivity intensive in doing it this way, and one can construct meaning or co-construct meaning with others, and doing this often reinforces that learning, and so it's regular uptake. So really the underpinning pedagogical framework here, first of all, it has to be geared to the level of proficiency, and then it's self-managed and built-in feedback. That has a whole new element to language learning. It's interactive and it's easily repeated, and through the augmented reality and through the platform that's being used for the project, everybody can go back and watch and listen and look and read everything that's been going on for reinforcement. So it's meaning supported, and by motivating animations it's accessible and one can self-monitor. And students' interactions are hierarchically organised and often in multimodal texts, and it's pedagogical deepening because structured and geared to topics and themes. It supports the learning experiences with systematic and ongoing feedback. So it's built-in reinforcement of learning that's pitched at the students' levels, and it builds in learner autonomy so students can pick and choose and improve. So features most enabling then of students' language learning, it's creating a simulating environment for second language acquisition, and new meta-language is required, and so because it's a new learning world. So talking about one's language learning in this context is different from the classroom where people had textbooks. So there's a new authenticism in the communication for what is now being called digital natives, because our students really have not known anything other than a life with the internet and the technology that's available. So it's really creating a third space. Now you may think there are other enabling features as well, so I leave you to think about that. So from your perspective, what are the take-home messages for you? Please spend 2 minutes discussing with the person sitting next to you about what does this mean for your particular situation. And if you would like to email me, here is my email. Thank you.